Welcome into KC Sports Night, Thursday, March 6th. Same crew as yesterday. I'm Gabe Swartz, joined by Neal Jones.
I'm part of your crew.
Yeah.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Wow. I just accidentally stumbled upon saying you're part of the crew today. You before the show said you're going to ambush me with two questions. And
I'm down on the set. I asked Carolyn Long and Brad Stevens, because I don't normally wear this tie with this suit coat. I said, does this look okay? And Carolyn said yes, and Brad said, no, it doesn't. So that's one question. Does this look okay? The other one was, I asked Carolyn Long, what do you think about the court, the basketball court for the Big 12? You went down and watched the K-State game. You must have been gambling on it, because I can't imagine that you would have gone down there.
I was sent for work, and I did not gamble. I can confirm that. Greg sits over my shoulder, I want him to know that I did not gamble on the game.
So what did you think about the basketball court, and what do you think about this jacket and tie?
I like the suit and tie. I think that the court looks significantly worse on TV than it does in person. My vantage point at the game today, the media seating for the women's tournament, is on the baseline. So if you're watching on TV, on the right side behind the hoop. So on TV, I said that the court if you are unaware of what we're speaking about, the Big 12 men's and women's basketball courts at T-Mobile Center for the next 2 weeks, it has the Roman numerals of 12, XII, across the entire court. It on TV looks awful. It looks like a DNA strand. Some people have said it looks like a bunch of different things. It looks like a Louis Vuitton bag or something along the lines.
When someone did that in the Star,
that's what it looked like to you.
No, that's what I was quoting somebody in the Kansas City Star.
Yeah. And then I was sitting there today, and you're behind the angle, so you can't even read the Roman numerals. It just looks like train tracks up and down the basketball court. So
this is good television, I know, because we're not showing it, but we're not allowed to.
Exactly.
But I should say, I think if it were a little brighter and warmer, it's gray. And at least it looks gray on television. I think it looks really somber and dark. If it were lighter, I think it would be more acceptable.
Well, the Big 12 tournament's court has always been like a very generic black and white normal basketball court. And then they went to this, which just has kind of made it a little murkier. It almost looks a little bit like the Brooklyn Nets court at Barclays Center,
where did the commissioner come from?
Yeah, from Brooklyn. So that might be a little bit of the inspiration. I don't necessarily see the vision. I think it's one of those things that I'm like, it is very it's not the best look, but
I wish the court would just say Kansas City across the top in huge letters so you could read that, and then below that, Big Ten and SEC are overrated, and Pac-12 dead, ACC sucks. That's what I would put on
a little grave marker for killing the Pac-12 at the bottom.
That's what I would put on there, and maybe like have all the original Big 8 teams, have them the originals. Okay, and then have newcomers like the teams that joined the Big 12, like TCU and people like that, and then the provisional members, Utah, BYU, Arizona State. They're not full members yet. Have them real little. I would have that on there to try to demean them. If you're going to send a message with the court, that'd be a pretty good message to make. Attack the other leagues and make fun of your new members.
There are several mottos. I didn't pay enough attention to read them all on the courts today, but in the past I think the old one said greater than 12 now that they have 16 teams in the league, things like that. So Neal, maybe you could run into Brett Yormark next week when he's in Kansas City, or later this week, and you could give him a little bit of your design inspiration for next time.
You're an ASU grad. Would that bother you if you were demeaned on the court? I mean, you guys aren't very good anyway at basketball.
Well, we own the league in football, so there we go.
Yeah, you do.
So
you do.
Exactly. Yeah, you can. We're not a basketball season.
Mizzou is not even on anything in the SEC yet. They're still a provisional member. Oklahoma's below them because they beat Oklahoma in football, and Oklahoma is just, other than beating Alabama, they did nothing in football. So they are like a speck in the SEC. So I think you make the new members go through their pledgeship, and then you might let them in later. That's my own personal opinion.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the action in the game that I did attend today, K-State, which was playing in it because they stumbled to the finish line of the Big 12 regular season. They lost 3 of their last 4 in the regular season.
No, you're burying the lead. They lost their All-America big person, 6'6" center, and so they have problems down the stretch. What a shock when the Philadelphia Warriors didn't have Wilt Chamberlain, they stumbled a little bit.
Okay, so Neal's comparing Ayoka Lee to Wilt Chamberlain, just for the record. K-State, yeah, but they lost 3 of their last 4 in the regular season.
Why do you run them down? They lost. Why do you run them down? You're married to a Jayhawk, so you got to run K-State down.
They went from the 2 seed in the conference tournament to now the 5 seed. So they played today when I don't think most K-State fans anticipated them playing. The crowd was decent. It was still a Thursday at 11 a.m. Now they're in the spot where they were probably hoping to be, which is into the round in which all of the teams who got a double bye were in, and they play a West Virginia team who they lost to a couple weeks ago.
Yep. And they still will not. They won't have their big girl back yet.
Yeah, she's probably unlikely to play. She was there wearing a boot on her left foot today. But Serena Sundell, 21 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists.
Where's she from?
She is from
Maryville High School, right in this part of our viewing area.
So,
they have the internet in Maryville, right?
I think so.
Okay.
She had 19 points in the second half, 2 in the first half, and she just kept shooting. I think she was 1 for 5 at halftime.
She's a rangy guard. She's a senior. She knows how to play basketball. Yeah. She creates her own shot within the offense, so she does what she does. She had 21, but what impressed me was the young lady that had 10 from Shawnee Mission Northwest, who has this is, I think, her 3rd or 4th school. You know, she's played some different places. She is powerful. I could see how she's not as effective when Ayoka Lee's on the block, because when they space the floor, she's physical. She's 6'2". She gets the ball. She can score one-on-one with just about anybody unless they're a lot taller than her. She had 10 points, and I was impressed that they had 3 or 4 young ladies who stepped up and played good games offensively, which is what you need when you don't have your big gun.
Yeah, nobody was in double figures for K-State until I think there was 2 minutes left in the third quarter, so it was a really balanced scoring attack.
But you said that they covered the over, so that's good news.
They did not. They actually did not cover
the spread. They didn't cover the over?
They were favored by 24.5, and they never led by more than, I think, 17.
Yeah, but I thought the over. They got the over because it was 85.
I don't know about that.
60.
I don't know about that.
80-65. Oh, I forgot you didn't gamble.
I was there as a respectable
Your boss gambles.
Journalist.
I wonder if your boss would yell out if they went over.
So they play tomorrow at 11 a.m., West Virginia.
And that's the best time to play. Why is that?
Well,
for the
Jeff
fans.
Mitty,
why is it? Go to the game.
Get you out of work.
Go eat. See Kansas City. You're coming in from the farm or wherever you're coming from out west. When we would come up from Oklahoma, you love those early games because then you can go out in Kansas City and do the things you can't do in Oklahoma. You know, get like good barbecue and stuff like that. So I mean, to me, the day games are great. The morning game's the best because you can watch a little of the second game and then you can go out and have fun in Kansas City.
Well, Jeff Mitty, the coach for K-State, was actually asked about it today of whether he enjoys the 11 a.m. slot and being the first team to play on the days in which there's 4 games in this tournament. He said, I don't necessarily love it. I don't necessarily love having to get up as early and whatever. But he's also said, hey, our team practices at like 10:30 in the morning most days, so we kind of are good with it. And Serena Sundell was like, I like the 11 a.m. day. And there was some energy in the building today. There was tons of elementary schoolers.
Yeah, I was going to say, the camera shot that they had that I'm using highlights at 6 o'clock, was a lot of kids, and a lot of them were wearing Jayhawk stuff. I mean, they were kids
there were
from the Kansas City area who were rooting for whoever they came to root for.
I saw Mizzou gear, I saw KU gear, I saw K-State gear. There was plenty of kids in Iowa State stuff, and that's kind of the beauty of the Big 12 tournament, and we'll see more of that throughout this weekend.
Is it true that since Mizzou did so badly in women's basketball, they're going to be relegated to the Big 12 tournament in basketball next year?
I don't think so, but we'll
because
see.
Isn't Mizzou the Big 12 wrestling champion right now?
That would be a question for Greg Daly.
I know they've won it a couple of times because they compete with the Big 12 in a number of sports. I believe Oklahoma continues to compete in the Big 12 because the SEC doesn't have wrestling.
Yeah, the conference realignment in the Olympic sports is quite a task to keep up with.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Last night in Norman, Oklahoma, Mizzou went on the road, lost their second consecutive game. Not a bad Oklahoma team, but a team that's fighting for a bubble spot. Mizzou gave up 96 points. Oklahoma shot 57% from the floor, 41% on threes, and 96% from the free throw line. What was your biggest takeaway from watching the game last night?
Well, I'll tell you what impressed me. When we turned on the game, you and I, here at work getting ready for the 10 o'clock show, and we started rolling on the game in the second half, it looked like it was a blowout. I think the lead was 18 when we turned it on. And Mizzou is playing still with an edge. I thought there was going to be a fight or two. I thought there were going to be people pushing each other around. I thought, okay, we don't want that. You get ejected, that means you miss the next game. So you don't want that to happen. Nothing like that happened, but it was a little edgy. And 90% of it, now the talking, which you can't see on television from up top, the talking may have been coming from OU because they were up 18. They may have been running their mouth. They got destroyed in Columbia when they played Mizzou earlier this month in Columbia,
in early February.
Early February in Columbia. They got embarrassed. So they may have been talking, but the Mizzou guys were the ones bumping and kind of pushing people, and they were all mad, and they clawed their way back. Hit a lot of good shots. They never really defended Oklahoma real successfully. Oklahoma did a good job offensively, even though OU lost one of their best players probably for the rest of the year with a knee injury in the second half. They had a hard time stopping Oklahoma. Mizzou's lost 3 of their last 4 games, and all 3 came on the road. At Vanderbilt against a decent team, right, in a tough place to play. Oklahoma has been a team that they've been scary. They've got some decent wins. They're 3-3 against Quad 1. And I guess they're 4-3 now, I think. So it's not like they haven't beaten some people. They probably should have won some games. They were up 18 on A&M in the second half in Norman and blew that game right out of the gate.
They're back and forth against Kentucky last week, too.
Should have beaten Kentucky. It came down to the last play of the game, and Kentucky made a play. So what I'm getting at is Oklahoma's not terrible. Vanderbilt's not terrible. And when they played at Arkansas, I think Arkansas is not very good, but Arkansas always sells out. Okay, that's a bit. The games down there are a big deal, win, lose, or draw, because they have nothing else. I've worked there for 3 years, and the Razorback fans come out, so that's not an easy place to play. And I do think they view Missouri as kind of a team they ought to be able to beat. So I don't think those were gimmies, any of them. So I'm not worried about Mizzou yet. I think that as long as they stay healthy, I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the NCAA tournament.
And because of this recent stretch of play and the recent stretch of losses on the road, they're probably out on getting a top 4 seed at the SEC tournament. Kind of puts them in the exact same spot that we just talked about with the K-State women in terms of playing in the second round of the tournament for their first game. And that would probably I don't know what the exact SEC tournament matchup will be, and we won't know that until the league play concludes on Saturday, but it's probably going to set them up with a matchup against a similar level of opponent as this kind of Oklahoma team, and set them. We'll see what it looks like when they go to Nashville next week.
The good news is they are not on the bubble. They are a team that has been in the top 10 for much of the year. I think they're very well respected. They play in the hardest league there is. Their record's not great. I think they're 10-7 in the SEC, which doesn't sound very good until you look at who they've had to play. They played a lot of really good teams. I know that they feel like they've got a couple of wins. There were some games that got away from them. Vanderbilt, the last game before this, was certainly one of those. They felt like they probably should have won. But the fact of the matter is they're safely in the NCAA tournament, and I think they're a good enough team that they are capable of playing with anybody. I haven't seen everybody. I haven't watched a ton of college basketball. When you look at scores, though, and all that, you feel like, okay, this is a team that can play. They pressed last night. They did some things. They can go out and play you. They destroyed Kansas, and Kansas is not a terrible team. They haven't played great. And
they beat Florida on the road, who's a top 5 team. They beat Alabama at home and handled the game pretty much the entire time. So yeah, they've played Auburn. That was probably the team that they did the worst against. But I kind of think we're at the point of the year where Auburn and Duke have kind of separated themselves as the two cream of the crop in terms of the entire country. And there's other really good teams, and I think Mizzou is in that category of teams that can hang with anybody. and give them a shot. So we will see how that looks. The last thing that we've got to get to today is some comments from Travis Kelce. This was on his podcast, and we discussed a little bit on his podcast yesterday about what him coming back means. But he said, I've always trusted Brett Veach and the front office and the coaches to bring in the right guys. He was talking about, as they've got all these decisions to make, Justin Reed's a free agent, Nick Bolton's a free agent. They had the Trey Smith decision to make with the franchise tag and maybe whether they'll extend him or not. Travis Kelce's contract could be restructured if they wanted to put some fun money on next year just in case, because it would help them this season.
Right.
And
they're going to have
he was
a
in
lot
that spot
more
this year.
next year, a lot more room under the cap next year than they have right now.
Yeah, and it just keeps going up. So I guess what I'd go with it is, as he's talking about that and as he's talking about when you lose a Super Bowl, kind of the bittersweet nature of knowing you're never going to play with that exact same group of guys again. What are you on your, if you're in Brett Veach's shoes, what's kind of the moves that you're looking to prioritize this offseason for the Chiefs?
Well, I mean, look, it's easy for you and I. We're focused on offense because, generally speaking, that's what the media focuses on. And with this franchise over the years, traditionally the offense under Andy Reid has kind of carried the defense. But you and I know, and you've talked about it a lot over the time you've been here at Channel 5, they won last year's Super Bowl. That playoff run was really driven as much by the defense's play than anything else. They had to dumb down the offense because they just didn't have the playmakers. And they ran the offense through Kelce, through Rashee Rice, the rookie wide receiver, and through their running back, Isaiah Pacheco. Those are the three engines, with Patrick Mahomes being the point guard, distributing the football. That drove their offense. Their defense is what, if they got a lead, the defense made stops. They made stop after stop. They came up with a huge turnover against Baltimore on the goal line last year that really kind of changed the whole game, put them in the Super Bowl. And so you can't just look at, well, if they fix the left tackle position, this team's taken care of. No, they've got to answer those problems, not issues. They've got to answer those questions on defense, and they are every bit as important as the left tackle position, probably, if you look at this team as a total.
And as we discussed yesterday with the Joe Thuney trade and the cap space that frees up from that, one of the moves that we saw nationally, and we saw the impact of this guy. He had an interception in the Super Bowl. The Eagles gave a contract extension to Zach Bond. I think it was 3 years, $51 million, $17 million average annual. Nick Bolton is a guy who's up for a new deal. I don't know what the appetite is for him to return on a maxed out top of the market linebacker deal, but Zach Bond did not reset the market at linebacker. He came in, I think the contract ended up being third or fourth highest, and Zach Bond was an all-pro this past season. So you've got to think that Nick Bolton is coming in somewhere below that, given that he didn't have the season that Zach Bond did.
I did not, and again, I shoot the home games. So it's very difficult. It's much easier when you watch on television or watch in the press box to get a feel for what people are doing. But there were times starting week one when it looked like he was the spy. Nick Bolton was the spy on the quarterback. And a couple of these quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson is so good. I don't know that anybody's going to handle him very well one-on-one in the open field. But I thought that they had problems against the Texans even with the quarterback run game. It made me wonder. I wonder if he has lost a step or if he's hurt. You know, I know he played with the shoulder and the hand and the elbow and stuff last year, or the year before last, but this last season, I thought he was supposed to be 100% healthy, and I didn't know that if he was as involved or as active defensively as I'd seen. But that's just kind of a glimmer I got. I know this. He's the quarterback of the defense. He's the one who has to make the calls on the field. He has to make adjustments. He has to do checks. And he plays a huge role. And Steve Spagnuolo, as you know, his defense is very cerebral. He wants to have 15 or 20 ways to attack an offense, not 5, not 3. There was a year, I think in 1995, they played the same defensive call the whole year because nobody could beat them. The secondary and their corners were so good, their pass rush was so good that they just stayed in the same defense all year and said, hey, good luck. well, the rules have changed. You can't tackle people. You can't hit people. You can't dominate people the way you used to. And now Steve Spagnuolo's got this kaleidoscope of defenses. He's got the perfect quarterback out there on the field at middle linebacker, a guy that can make all the calls, and that's Nick Bolton. So that has to count for something. Is he the best middle linebacker in football, inside linebacker? Probably not, but I'll tell you what, he might be the best for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, it's certainly an intriguing debate, and that's kind of the interesting part of the NFL offseason is making one move and pulling one lever opens up the door to do another thing, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure in different ways, and that's what part of their choices has led them to sticking with Trey Smith, letting go of Joe Thuney, and moving on. So last thing, 3 quick news nuggets from the NFL world I want to get your opinion on. Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf, he has requested a trade. Are you in or out on the Chiefs being in on a DK Metcalf trade?
No. I mean, for the reasons we've talked about. He's a great player in name. He's got a huge name. How much you got left in the tank? Can he play this system?
And he's going to want an extension. So
and so the good thing is if you can defer the money, you can afford it probably. But anything that has to go on the cap this year, meaning a big signing bonus, I know you can prorate that over the length of the contract. You give him a 7-year deal knowing he's only going to play 3 or something, and you pay the big balloon payment at the end of the thing. There's ways to play it around. You asked me, what do I think about being in the shoes of Brett Veach? I never got to the answer, and the answer is his job is so complicated, and I don't focus on that end of it very much. I try to focus on the football, tell football stories. I have no way of judging what anybody's doing because they've got so many pressures on them, so many factors they have to factor in. And Andy Reid said it best. And remember, we have to have a team. We go to camp, we have to have a team. It's not good enough to have, well, we got 48 guys under contract and that's all we can afford. It does not work that way. You got to go to camp. You got to get 83 guys signed. And so I don't know about you, but I think it's really hard to judge what GMs do. And it makes sense when you see a Joey Bosa, who's probably still got a lot of good football on him, getting cast off by the Chargers for that very reason.
That's a cap move as well. Other AFC West news, the Raiders have made defensive end Max Crosby the highest paid non-quarterback in football. I think that's certainly interesting given the troubles and the pass rushing history that he has against the Chiefs. And then former Chiefs center Mitch Morse, also a Mizzou guy. You've covered him. He retired today after a 10-year NFL career.
I'm glad to hear that. I hope that he's able to get out without long-term head injuries. He had a history of concussions. He lives in Kansas City. He stayed in Kansas City even though he was playing for the Buffalo Bills for a long time, and he was with Jacksonville last year.
This last year,
His house is here. He is truly one of the nicest people that I've ever interviewed and covered in my career. Covered at Mizzou and got to cover him with the Chiefs and do stuff with him, some features and stuff. What a wonderful man, and he's a great guy, and I'm so glad he's going to be in Kansas City. And if I were the management here, I would fire me and bring him in.
Okay, that's some high praise. All right, well, a good show. Hope everybody had a great Thursday. Have a great end to your week on Friday. Thanks for watching.
Theta, baby.
See you
take
next
care
time.
of that third Theta wife. We both got Theta wives. You better take care.